Dakota Dawson was born in 1865. He is Allison and Shyla Dawson's second child. Dakota didn't have the greatest upbringing. His mother was to blame for that. When his father was around, everything was better. Dakota enjoyed spending time with him. Shyla would take him fishing every morning. He was his moral compass. After his death, everything went downhill. He and his sister were on their own. Dakota blamed his mother for his father's death and grew to despise her. He would often confront her and accuse her of murder. But his words meant nothing to her. Powerless, Dakota would have rage-filled episodes and throw tantrums. Since he couldn't do anything to his mother, he would take it out on his sister. One night, he couldn't take it anymore. So he left. He enjoyed the freedom of being out of the house and away from his mother. The next morning, he was found by a police officer who brought him back to the house. Dakota hated to be back there. Luckily for him, his uncle Ohansi would come and take them away shortly after. Living with his aunt and uncle was a breath of fresh air compared to what they had been through. It was comfortable and safe. Dakota had a lot in common with Ohansi. They got along very well. But Dakota was still dealing with a lot of anger. Ohansi and his wife would get him things to control his anger, but nothing seemed to work for him. He would bully his sister and destroy her things. His behavior would only get worse as he got older. Dakota would sometimes get so angry that he couldn't stand to be in the house anymore. He would usually go out to smoke and drink. He started seeing a girl named Juliana. She was his first. They were very much in love, but they weren't perfect. They would argue often, but no argument could break them up. On the night he laid a hand on his sister, everything changed. He ran off, troubled by his own actions. He stayed with Juliana and they had a few drinks together. She comforted him about what happened. But after a few drinks, they got into an argument. They said some pretty hurtful things. It had turned physical. The second she put her hands on him, he saw red. He grabbed a knife and stabbed her. Just like that, Juliana was gone. Dakota couldn't believe what he had done. He was so angry. He couldn't control himself. When he finally calmed down, he buried her outside, then cleaned up. He washed the blood off and stayed in the house. Despite his actions, he was comfortable there. He had no regrets. One night at the bar, he met another woman. The two of them hit it off, but like his last relationship, it was toxic. Dakota was able to keep his cool for a while, but the second he lost himself, it was over. He had killed yet again. This time, it wasn't an accident. He buried her in the back with his first victim, and that wouldn't be the last time. Dakota would spend years taking the lives of several women. No one would know that he was responsible. He had gotten away with so much murder that he had killed over 20 women by the time he was 30. But his life would change when he met a woman named Sakuya. She made him feel different. He looked forward to seeing her every day. He was madly in love with her. She knew him better than he knew himself. In 1896, they were married. For the first time in Dakota's life, he was at peace. They never fought or argued. They just loved each other. But sometimes he would have an episode. Too afraid that he'd hurt his wife, he would leave the house. He would find unsuspecting women to take his anger out on. He did this whenever he felt even a tiny bit of rage. He would kill until the rage simmered down. It sometimes felt like it never would. There were nights where he would still be out by sunrise. But he would always be back before his wife woke up. Sakuya had no idea what he had done. In 1903, they were expecting. They were excited to expand the family. Everything was perfect. It was the week after a storm. Dakota had gone out for the day, so Sakuya was home alone. A couple of policemen had paid her a visit. She invited them in and they told her that Dakota was suspected for murder. They asked if they could look around for clues. As devastated as she was to hear that, she gave them permission and hoped their suspicions were wrong. The officers took a look around the house. They didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Then they took a look outside. They noticed a strange patch of grass behind the house. They ran over for closer inspection. That's when they discovered human remains coming out of the ground. They immediately started digging and found a lot more remains hidden in plain sight. Sakuya couldn't believe what they uncovered in her backyard. That afternoon, when Dakota returned, they were all waiting for him. Sakuya was so hurt. She couldn't even look at him as they took him away. She didn't know who he was anymore. Dakota couldn't believe he'd been caught after getting away with it so long. He had now lost everything. After his arrest, he was brought to the electric chair where he was executed. Sakuya skipped town and changed her name to escape the media. She would never get over that day and she would never trust again. All she had to look forward to was a baby. Just months later, she had a little girl. She named her Cheyenne.